I would rather be in a McDonald's with somebody that didn't even have a job than be here with this guy flashing his Rolex in my face. That's probably the worst day ever.
Meet Sasha Frank, a British expat living in Singapore for 8 years. During the day, she's a banker, and in the evenings, she's a rising stand-up comedian. Sasha explained to me how the sense of humor of Singaporeans differs from the rest of the world, what it's like to live in the heart of Singapore's red light district, and her experiences as a foreign woman dating Singaporeans. I'm Max, not a stand-up comedian yet. Let's go.
You live next to the red light district.
I do live in the red light district,
Okay,
yes.
why and how is it?
Okay, so I used to live in very manicured expat land. I don't want to say I hated it, it's not for me. You know, lots of families and stuff, and obviously we're a family, but you know, single parent, one child is a different type of family. A couple of years back, found this incredible house, not this one, moved into it in the heart of Geylang and just loved it so much. And unfortunately, we couldn't stay in that house. We had to move, but I can walk out of here at any time of night and get food. I can get a haircut at midnight, which I work weird hours, so that's amazing for me. You know, I can get a manicure late at night. And weirdly, I always feel safe here. I always feel safer here than anywhere because there's always someone awake and around, and I love it. I feel safer in the red light district of Singapore than I do in a normal street anywhere else in the world. You know, I never feel like there's any threat around here. It's just so fun. I don't sort of socialise around here. I don't go to the bars so much, but I don't think I'm the target audience for the bars around here. And the food, come on, the Singapore food, best in the world. And Geylang has the best food. They will not hear otherwise.
How is it to be a creative person in Singapore? I mean, the UK has this reputation of being like, especially London, being the capital of like theatre, comedy and stuff. Singapore has different reputation. There are like circles and there is a scene. How do you feel to be here as a creative person? Like
the most creative stuff I've done has been here in Singapore. I really picked up this life here. I mean, I've always been into acting, like, you know, musical theatre and things like that. But the bulk of it's been here, like as an adult. And I think it's amazing. I don't know if you've ever seen any plays or anything here in Singapore, but the art scene is incredible. And it's very small, it's very close-knit, much easier to get opportunities. So I don't really know any different, but you know, it might not be the stereotype for Singapore, but the actual art scene here is great, and there's so much talent.
Can you give me maybe some examples? What are the best like jokes that work in Singapore, that work for local audience?
Oh, I mean, the one that gets the biggest laugh that I tell all the time is that I like to date Singaporean men, which is true. I only have 2 like proper ex-boyfriends here, both Singaporean. And the joke is that people assume that can't be true because I'm white, and the stereotype is that white women don't date Singaporean men, but I actually have, you know, predominantly dated Singaporean men because I'm really trying to get PR. So that joke I tell it all the time. I'm sick of it, but and it's not why I date Singaporean men, incidentally, but that's the joke, and that gets the biggest laugh. And I talk about you know, the different phrases that people use that I'm still used to. Still getting used to, which is like, I'm going to send you home. You know, people say to send you home means to drive you home, you know. And then I had a guy I was at a guy's house and he was like, don't worry, I'm going to send you home soon. Now in the UK, if someone says that, it's like, send you home. Like, I don't like you, go away. You know, you're annoying me. You know, I want you to leave my house. And I was so shocked when he was like, don't worry, I'm going to send you home. I was like, oh, that seemed, have I done something wrong? But he meant he was going to drive me home.
The kind of jokes, they work for local audience and expats.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, absolutely. And it's really nice, like, as much as I tell that, trying to get PR joke, honestly, like 6 times a week sometimes, I always like seeing like the recognition of it, that people know what I'm talking about. It gets like, last night it got like a whole applause break. And I'm sure the other comedians or people that come and see me a lot are like, oh my God, does this woman have any other jokes? But it really, like, I just know it makes the mood in the room good, because it kind of levels me with everybody. So
did you get enough sleep last night? If not, let's change that in 1 minute. We all know how crucial good sleep is for your health and happiness, yet it can be elusive. That's why I want to recommend you Manta Sleep, the sponsor of today's video. This is my Manta Sleep Mask. If you ever used an ordinary sleep mask, you might think that sleeping with the mask sucks. They slip off, let in light, or press against your eyelashes. But this mask is a game changer. It's designed with adjustable eye cups. This means you can customize it to fit your face perfectly, ensuring total darkness and zero pressure on your eyes. It's like it was made just for you. So whether I'm taking a quick nap during the day or trying to sleep on a flight, the Manta Sleep Mask blocks out all the light. It's so comfortable that I barely feel it on my face. It's the best first step to ensure you sleep better anywhere, anytime. Trust me. Start improving your sleep now and your future self will thank you. So follow the link in description below and use my promo code maxchernovYT for 10% off your order. Sleep well.
What's the biggest differences of like sense of humor of British people and Singaporeans?
This is a really hard one to answer because I became a comedian, or a stand-up comedian in Singapore.
Yeah.
So I'm so used to the way it works here. But then I go back to the UK and it's this very quirky, very nuanced type of comedy, and it's clever and like wholeheartedly British. So it's really hard to articulate. I think British comedy is different from any other comedy because everything is like a story and is thought through so much, and like we think about it almost too much. And actually the bigger comparison I make is like American and English comedy. Like I have really close friends who are comedians in the US, and their jokes are like, they don't overthink it. They're not stories. They're just like punchline, 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 funny, straightforward. Whereas I'm there trying to write this whole like very complicated, long story with jokes. So it's really different. But Singapore, I would say the comedy scene is newer. So it's still finding its identity maybe.
I just came from Europe and I had listened to some lecture of like some MBA professor. So the lecture was about the cultural differences between like different countries, and like the US is okay. The feature of US is very low context, meaning people explain everything, and there are countries where people don't explain. Like you need to know why. Well, you need to know the background, the hidden part.
Exactly.
You know.
Exactly. And like the UK, we don't like to explain our punchlines. We're like, I'm going to throw you like a thinker. You're going to just sit there with it. Like, I don't care if you don't get it straight away.
The scene is developing right now.
Yes.
What other features of the local scene? More like Australian, more like British, more like American?
The comedians that I see here in Singapore who are already successful are so smart and their humor is so good. It's very local humor. I think that's the defining thing for Singapore for me. First of all, of course, there's no, unlike say the US, there's no humor about drugs. It doesn't tend to be particularly controversial here, particularly offensive. You know, which I see as a good thing because I'm not an offensive comedian, although there are people that tell those kind of jokes who are great on this scene. So I think it's kind of quite, not completely clean, but it's not super controversial or super offensive. As I say, lots of local references. So it's just Singapore. I don't know if I would say it's like any other country necessarily.
I was at like a few months ago. It was the Scottish comedian. I forgot the name.
Matt.
Probably, but he was pretty harsh. Like jokes are pretty harsh. Jokes about drugs, but mainly but maybe it's different one.
Oh no, but, okay, I was going to say not here in Singapore, right?
In Singapore.
Singapore, okay.
Yeah, but drugs about like in Scotland. So maybe that's the way.
Maybe
you can make jokes about drugs in another country.
Maybe I just haven't heard them. Yeah.
I noticed there are a lot of jokes about like racial jokes.
Yeah.
And relationship between like Chinese, Malay, Indian, this kind of thing.
Yeah, I mean, that is for Singaporeans to make those jokes. I would never make them. I didn't grow up here. I don't, I don't have that context. But yeah, that's true. People are comfortable to make, Singapore is such a multicultural society already that I think people are comfortable to reflect on that in their comedy. Yeah.
Well, let's say your jokes about dating, they are more universal.
They are universal, yeah.
And basically same jokes would work in Australia and in the UK,
yes,
right?
Absolutely. So sometimes I switch up small things. the joke about getting PR here doesn't work elsewhere. Sometimes I tell it and say like, I'm trying to get Singapore citizenship because it's the strongest passport in the world. It doesn't hit the same though. But I'm lucky, like the crowds here are so international. So my comedy kind of works everywhere.
If you joke about it, I'm trying to get the British passport, doing something, it doesn't work because it's a clear system. It's like a years-based system or points-based system, like in some countries. And Singapore is like a black box.
Absolutely, so absolutely. So maybe that is how I get PR. I don't know.
Yeah, to be a comedian, you need to be a little bit on the edge. But in Singapore, as you mentioned, it's kind of maybe hard to be on the edge sometimes.
Yeah.
Does it downgrade your comedy level?
I am conscious of what I say for 3 reasons. First of all, I'm a guest here. I love this country. Second of all, I have a corporate job. And third of all, I'm a parent. So all of those 3 things make me less free to say absolutely anything that comes to mind ever. You know, not that anything particularly controversial ever comes up, but those 3 things do always come into mind when I'm writing. And I'm super conservative about it as well because they're all important things to me. Would I be able to write differently without them? Yeah, probably. And some of my favorite comics are the people that don't have those things in their minds because they're much freer with their comedy. But I'm okay with that. I'm okay.
How can you make money as a stand-up comedian in Singapore?
So what the comics here do that do it full-time, actually not my version of full-time where I do, as many evenings as I can, but actual full-time, they do corporate gigs, they do, they sell their own shows, that makes them money, I suppose sponsorship, Fuck a Fuzz, and a couple of the guys, they have a really well-known podcast. I don't know if they make money out of it. I don't know the details behind it, but there's all different things that you can do to build a profile and to build a brand. And, with that comes more opportunities and travel, of course. People travel to do comedy, which is a great way to make money out of it.
As far as I know, how people make money, so they you need to be visible, and sometimes you kind of start to be visible through TV first.
Yes.
Then you grow your following on Instagram or you start your own channel on YouTube.
Yep.
Then you have a fan base and then you make money on stand-up shows. So you tour different cities.
Yep.
And second one, you start selling sponsorships. So you do
absolutely. Merchandise, of course, if you get to that level. Exactly what you said. There's all these different ways to do it. Social media is a huge thing. Trying to build a social media platform, I find it harder. I don't have as much time, but I think that's where that's where people see your stuff. That's where you find the people that buy the tickets.
I think that maybe the sweet spot is like a blogger plus comedian.
Yes, something else, comedian plus. There are so many opportunities. It's definitely the way forward.
By the way, we have the 12-month program how to grow following on YouTube. So the link below.
Maybe I need that.
But you also have a full-time job.
I do have a full-time job. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Do you think the transition from the corporate to a full-time job to purely stand-up comedian job is possible in Singapore?
For me, I'm a single parent, so it's not, it's really unlikely I would ever be in a financial position where I could give up my job, but I love my job. This is always a misconception that people have. They're like, oh, you must hate your corporate job and, because you have this creative thing, but that's not true at all. I've spent 20 years building that career and I'm really proud of it and I love the job. So I'm actually very happy that I get to do both things. One day would I like to be a full-time comedian? Of course. I feel like that's always the dream for anyone with a hobby that they love. But people always say to me, do you do comedy full-time? And I'm like, I kind of do it full-time because I do it as much as I can do it, but it's not my full-time job.
How was it when you're 35, 34, 35, start dating again, being in the open market? How does it feel?
It's a weird thing, and I find this with, I talk to a lot of people who are in the process of getting divorced, and one thing the women particularly always say to me is, how's dating after divorce? Because when you first divorce, right, it feels like the most important thing, especially if you've been married a long time. You're like, oh, well, I need to find my next person. Like there isn't this
Yeah.
part of you that's like, I'm just going to be single. So I dated like crazy. I was single just around the time COVID hit. So I didn't get like a normal get out there dating experience.
Yeah.
You know, I had to use the dating apps and stuff. So it seemed so important. And I didn't have trouble getting dates. I used to go on 3 dates a day, incidentally, when I was first single, 3 dates a day. Because I was like, you know, my singleness is a problem to be fixed. I've got to find somebody. And it's crazy now I think about it. Didn't work, still single. So there you go.
What was the weirdest date that you had?
Do you know what the worst date was?
Okay.
I dated a guy who thought I was going to be really impressed by money and status, and I'm not. I grew up poor, by the way, so like money does nothing for me. I've never dated someone that earns more than me. Like it's just money does not interest me at all. And he was like all Rolex and talking about, oh, I'm an executive and blah, blah, blah. And it was just like the worst few hours of my life. And just everything he said, I was just like, oh my God, I would literally rather be, we were at a really fancy restaurant. And I was like, I would rather be in a McDonald's, like with somebody that didn't even have a job than be here with this guy flashing his Rolex in my face. That's probably the worst date ever.
Yeah.
And then he asked me out again a few years later when I bumped into him. And I didn't obviously say this, but I was thinking, you do know you're the story I tell of the worst date I've ever had. So I will tell you something, right? Being a female comedian is man repellent. Okay? Every man that's ever come to see my show has never asked me out again. So I now tell men, like, don't come and see the show because they're like, oh, I'd love to come and see you. I'm like, please don't. Which I hope is not just because I'm not funny. I think it's just because it's not a very attractive thing, I think, for a man to see a woman on stage. Like, I don't know, it's a bit alpha, maybe. If I have a fan out there who wants to go on a date, let me know. I don't know. I guess wouldn't rule it out.
People approach you on the street and say like, hi.
They do.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, they do a lot now, which is weird. I get approached all the time, which is amazing. Like if I go for a night out, people are like, oh, you're the comedian, which I love. I said this to my friend. We were out at the weekend and it happened a few times, and I was like, I'm not gonna lie, I love this. I love it. Like I don't want to be like, oh my God, it's so embarrassing. It's not. I love it. I'm like, bring it. Come say hi. Yes. I haven't had anyone at work ask me yet, so I'm waiting for that.
Yeah, I have it also. In Singapore, it's more like, hey, I love your videos, this kind of thing. In India, it's different. It's like, oh my God, this kind of thing.
Oh, so, that's amazing.
Yeah, in Singapore, it's more like gentle, I think.
I always have a good experience. But one thing I need to tell people about me, I have face blindness. This is a real thing. It's like a real medical thing. And the problem is I don't recognize people a lot, which is killer with something like this, because then people come up to me and like, oh, Sasha, I've been at like all your shows. And I'm like, But guys, if it ever happens and I don't recognize you, it's face blindness. It's a real thing. Like
it's like so embarrassing.
Like it's a medical thing, and it's embarrassing in my corporate life. It's embarrassing in my comedy life. Like it's so bad, and people think I'm rude or I don't care because I don't recognize them, and it's not that. Next time I see you, I probably won't recognize you. I'm not visual. So it's a really weird thing.
Wow, interesting. Do you joke about it publicly?
I haven't done. I do have. I haven't actually, but it's in my notes of things I want to write about. Because it really affects me. I mean, especially, it's a terrible thing to say. White woman in Asia, if I don't recognize people go, oh, you think we all look the same? And I'm like, I don't recognize anyone. And it makes me feel terrible that people would ever think that I would be like that. But actually, it doesn't matter who someone is. I just don't recognize people.
Do you have any principles in life that are really important for you, and maybe you teach your daughter something like maybe one or two that really important?
So there are a few things. These are the things I believe in. First of all, kindness. Number one thing for me, be kind. I don't care if she's the smartest kid, top of the class. I don't care about anything. I just want to know that she's kind to the other people in her class. That's number one thing. The one thing that I tell everybody that I'm a big believer in is things can be two things. It's okay to feel two things about one situation. So you can feel excited to go to a friend's house, but sad that it means you can't spend the afternoon with your mum, you know.
Yeah.
And I just think this in life in general, people think everything has to be black and white, and actually I really am a massive believer in it's okay to feel two things. So we talk about that a lot. I think those are probably like the main things that we talk about. For me, her health, obviously health first, happiness next, everything else is secondary.
What's the meaning of life for you?
Oh, the meaning of life. I mean, to me, life is to be lived, to enjoy it and to be happy, and for the people around you to be happy. They say, I don't know how old you are, Max, but I'm going to be 40 this year.
Same.
And apparently, you're going to be 40 this year? I'm happy. Are you happy about it? When do you turn 40?
I have a midlife crisis.
I have a midlife crisis every day. So when do you turn 40?
August, end of August.
Oh, you're
28.
way older than me. November I turn 40. You know, I think life is to be enjoyed. They say our generation, we're the YOLO generation. I keep hearing this, the you only live once.
Yes.
I'm a bit like that. You know, I was married a long time. I was a very different person when I was married. Life was not so fun. You know, I got my lovely daughter out of it, which is amazing, but it wasn't an exciting life. And now I have such an exciting life. And I feel like there's this terrible phrase, do it for the plot, which sometimes I do that a little bit too much. But I believe in it, you know, make life amazing, make it something to talk about. If my life was super dull and boring, I wouldn't have this amazing opportunity to sit here with you and talk about it. So that to me is life is to be enjoyed.